How's it going, YouTube? Jamie the Kid 00 here, coming to you guys with the Elemental Dragon, or as it's now called in the TCG, my Dragon Ruler deck that I've been testing on Dueling Network for the past few weeks, on and off while I've been doing my revision. And I do have to admit a couple of things before I go into this video. One, this is still the sneak peek weekend. The set isn't generally released, and the set is not legal in the TCG technically. So there are cards that I'm missing from this. I have a complete main deck. The main deck is completely done. However, my extra deck is lacking quite a few cards, which are quite expensive, and I don't have the money to pick up. And I really don't intend to pick them up for quite some time, but I do want to get the list out there for you guys to see. So I'm going to go through this deck, and I'm actually going to talk about the effects of each and every one of these cards, because some of you really won't know what they do. So sorry for those of you who already know this and just want to see my list. But if I were to take this deck to an event, which I do kind of plan on doing, I do plan on taking this to regionals and borrowing Draco Sacks off of friends if I can't get them myself. So this is the list that I would play if I went to that event. So I'm going to move the extra deck out of the way. We're going to get into this. Okay, the first Dragon Ruler we play 3, one for each of the main elements that are not light and dark, is Blaster, the Dragon Ruler of Infernos. Now, all of the elemental dragons have very similar effects. Their first effect is that you can banish 2 dragons or 2 monsters of the same element as this current elemental... I'm going to call them elemental dragons because that was the Japanese name, but they are dragon rulers. You can banish 2 that are either the same element or are dragons to summon this from your hand or graveyard. And by the way, of all these effects that they have, you can only use one of them per turn. So you can use this effect to either summon himself by banishing 2. You can also use their effect, which involves discarding the copy of it from your hand and one other card of the same element to activate a particular effect that is unique to each dragon. The unique effect that Blaster has is you can ditch it and 1 fire to destroy one, I believe it's card or monster your opponent controls. Target 1 card, no, not even opponent controls, target 1 card on the field and destroy it. And then their final effect, which all of them share, is that you can banish it. If the card is banished by any means, you can activate its effect to search your deck for 1 dragon of the same element as the Dragon Ruler you have banished. So now moving on to the next one, play 3 copies of Tidal, the Dragon Ruler of Waterfalls. Tidal's effect differs from Blaster's, because Tidal's effect reads that you can send it and a water monster from your hand to the graveyard to send 1 card from your, I believe it's either card or monster, send 1 monster from your deck to your graveyard. I'm sorry about this, I don't really use their secondary effects that much when I'm playing Elemental Dragons, so I'm a little bit rusty on some of their effects. Then, continuing on, we play 3 copies of Tempest, the Dragon Ruler of Storms. Tempest's effect differs because it allows you to send Tempest and 1 wind monster from your hand to the graveyard to search your deck for 1 wind monster. I don't even know if I'm saying these correctly. You can discard this card and 1 wind monster to the graveyard and add 1 dragon type monsters from your deck to your hand. I'm really sorry about this. So this card is really good for rotating the rest of your deck. And then the final guy that we play is 3 copies of Redox, the Dragon Ruler of Boulders, and just in case I get this wrong, you can discard this card and 1 earth monster to the graveyard to target 1 monster in your graveyard and special summon that target, which I feel is one of the best effects in the whole kind of sequence of Dragon Rulers. But we play 3 of each of the Dragon Rulers because we intend to keep summoning them and never use the effect of 1 twice in order to keep our plays going. Then, continuing with the Dragon Ruler theme, we play 2 of each of the baby Dragon Rulers, as they're called. Play 2 copies of Burner, Dragon Ruler of Sparks. Burner's effect reads, you can send this card and any 1 dragon or fire type monster from your hand to the graveyard and special summon 1 Blaster Dragon Ruler of Infernos from your deck. It cannot attack. You can only use the effect of this guy once per turn, and all the other baby dragons have a very similar effect. So these are Burners, such blasters. We then play 2 copies of Stream, Dragon Ruler of Droplets, who can search out, of course, Tidal, Dragon Ruler of Waterfalls. 2 copies of Lightning, Dragon Ruler of the Drafts, who can search out Tempest, Dragon Ruler of Storms. And then we play 2 copies of Reactan, Dragon Ruler of Pebbles, which is Cupcake's favourite because it's called Pebbles. And it can search out Redox, Dragon Ruler of Boulders. Now on to the kind of non-Tachyon Galaxy stuff we play. We play 1 copy of Red Eyes Darkness Metal Dragon, because this card synergizes so well with the deck. In summoning it, you have to banish 1 dragon from the field. That can be one of the little guys, or it could be one of the big guys, and if the big guy hasn't used his effect this turn, you can, of course, activate it, because it was banished, which is always great. You then use your effect of your Red Eyes to start reviving stuff from the graveyard when you've already used this effect to summon it that turn, so it can extend your plays quite a bit. We then play 3 copies of Eclipse Wyvern. Eclipse Wyvern synergizes very well with the deck because you're able to discard it to the graveyard with the baby dragons in order to conduct their effects, and it will immediately allow you to banish one dragon from your deck that's level 7 or higher. So you can banish one of the elemental dragons and use their effect to search. You can banish Red MD, or you can banish the next card we're going to talk about. But it synergizes incredibly well with the deck, simply because in the same turn you can ditch it with your baby dragon and then banish it with one of your larger dragons when you're making your rank 7 plays, which you will almost always make turn 1. So continuing on, the other dragon target that we would search with Eclipse Wyvern is the 3 copies of Light and Darkness Dragon that we play in the deck. Light and Darkness Dragon is an incredible card that the deck can play because it can create a lockdown turn 1 in making 2 level 7 elemental dragons, exceeding into Dracosac, and in doing this we would never use any of our normal summons. After we've exceeded into the Dracosac, which is 2600 token spawner, you can detach one material from the Dracosac, special summon 2 tokens, and then immediately tribute the tokens for Light and Darkness Dragon, and you have your lad turn 1. And then for the final monsters I main, there are quite a few variances in the hand traps that the elemental dragons in Japan play, but I'm quite preferential to playing 3 copies of Effect Veiler, and stuff's starting to fall over because there's actually a really big pile. So that rounds off the monsters of the deck. I believe that is 30. And the deck revolves entirely around its monster lineup. So, yeah. Also, I should note that the Veilers come into their own because they synergize incredibly well with this deck, simply because of the fact that while they're also Effect Veiler, which stops your opponent big-eyeing your stuff, and trust me, big eye is a really big problem in Japan right now, they also synergize incredibly well with the level 7, simply because you never normal summon. So you can normal summon this, make your 7, and you can make level 8 synchros all day. And because those aren't shuffling, I'm going to pick them up in one big clump. So that is the monsters. For the spells, we have 10 spells. We play 1 Reborn and 1 Storm. We do not need Dark Hole in this because, to be honest, most often you can Big Eye whatever you want to steal. So we only play those 3. Then I play 3 copies of Gold Sarcophagus. This turns your elemental dragons in the main deck into rowers. So if you haven't opened a certain elemental dragon, therefore you're not going to be using its effect that turn, you can Gold Sarc for it and search out the baby version of it using its effect, and get yourself the dragon summon. So, Gold Sarc is really, really good. It's essentially a rotor for the baby dragons. So, that's the main facet you'll be using it in. We then play 2 copies of Sacred Sword of 7 Stars, which is basically trade-in for the elemental dragons, but it also comes into its own because you can banish, because it banishes the elemental dragon when you pay it as the cost, therefore activating the dragon's effect. So, it basically goes 2 for 2, and then allows you to +1 off of the dragon's effect. So it's incredibly good. And then we play 3 copies of probably the best spell in the deck, 3 copies of Super Rejuvenation. In activating the baby dragon's effects and the middle effect, which differs for every elemental dragon, you will inevitably be discarding 2 dragons from your hand each time you use their effects, which can cause you to go quite heavily minus if you're not recouping it through your monsters or in your battle phases, etc. The Super Rejuvenations in the deck really help you solve this problem by recharging your hand for every discard you make, so you can do all your discard plays, ditch loads of cards, get loads of stuff on board, make loads of Xyzes, and then Super Rejuvenation for a hand of like 6 back to your hand. It's incredible. So yeah, that is the main deck. I don't really have that much to talk about because I haven't had a chance to play this kind of in real life or practice it at any tournaments because it's still not legal, but I thought you guys would at least want to see the list I've been testing. And now I'm about to show you a few extra deck cards. This is not an extra deck, but it's the cards that I own for it at the moment. The extra deck I would play 3 copies of Dracosac, Mecha Phantom Beast Dracosac, but I don't own any at the moment. It would then play 2 to 3 copies of number 11 Big Eye, because this card is incredible in Japan right now. It would then play 1 copy of Abyssgaius, because you can make this with 2 titles, which is a possible field. And Abyssgaius is really quite good in the mirror and in all sorts of situations, so it's really quite good. And then we would play 1 copy of Gaia Dragon the Thunder Charger, because you can make it to pierce over certain defenses that you would otherwise have trouble getting past. So yeah, that is the Xyzes that I would play, and then for the level 8 Synchros that I would play to go in tandem with Veiler, because you don't need that many cards in your extra deck. Like, once you've got past the Big Eyes and the Dracosacs, you don't need much else. You play, 1 Scrap Dragon, 1 Red Dragon Arcfiend for dealing with defense cards. This is really good, and a lot of people in Japan play it. 1 Thor Ruler Arcfiend, because it's an Eradicator Epidemic Virus target. You can play 3 EEV in your side and make this. And you can Eradicate either this or Big Eye, so it's really good. And then 1 Stardust Dragon. So yeah, guys, this has been the kind of Dragon Ruler deck that I've been testing recently. I hope you've enjoyed this. I'm sorry if I've been a bit clunky in some of my definitions, but I really didn't prepare for this video. I just kind of wanted to get it recorded and say, yeah, this is the deck I've been playing, but sorry about the proxies. I know some of you really don't like it when I use proxies. But yeah, otherwise I think that's about all I want to talk about. This is Jimmy the Kid 00 with a Dragon Ruler deck profile. And I'll see you guys next time. Peace out. Bye.